Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Peter J. Redding here again with Exploring Self-Mastery. Lifetime journey, a lifetime journey indeed. This is the last of our Series 5. Series 5 has been focusing on CoreSELFtech and how do I find out who I am? How do I monitor that? How do I validate that? How do I assess that? How do I enhance that? Have been all the episodes up until episode 11, which is today. And so I welcome you to this journey. If you are interested at all in understanding who you are at your core, who your creator created you to be, you're exactly in the right place. And I welcome you dearly. I also encourage you to go back and listen to particularly episode 2 is maybe the most significant one out of all of those that I've done here. Episode number 2 is the actual discovery process. And so everything else that we've talked about before that and after that is based on the information that is inside that discovery for yourself, episode number 2. So let me switch gears here just a little bit. There we go. Today is really designed for Q&A. So if you have questions, I encourage you to put them into the chat box. If you're here with me live on the inner circle with Zoom, or if you're on YouTube that we're streaming out to live right now, then you can put it in the chat box there and we will get it into my chat box here so that we can answer those questions as we go on. Today we talk about and explore again process 5 and process 6, which are actually 2 assessments, self-assessments. The first one being a 10-level assessment. The second assessment is the mastery assessment. And we look at a bit from a quantitative standpoint, but again, it's you're determining it. I don't tell you what you're doing. You determine for yourself where you are with your self-mastery. And if you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, what's the significance of it, how does it fit into other things that are going on for you, again, please put those into the chat box and ask the question. That's what our session is for today, Q&A. Yeah. So moving right into that. Normally I have 2 quotes. This is kind of the end of the series, so I've taken up all the real estate myself. Thank you very much. And it's on being fulfilled. One cannot experience personal fulfillment without knowing and living their life in alignment with who they were created to be. In fact, true, deep, personal, and lasting fulfillment can only be experienced by knowing and living in alignment with who you were created to be. By me, Peter J. Redding. I am convinced of this beyond measure. If I am trying to live somebody else's life, which I tried desperately to do for the first 37 years of my life, there was little or no sense of personal, deep, lasting fulfillment inside of my body. When people say, are you comfortable in your own skin? I think this is what they're referring to. And first 37 years, I was trying to be what others wanted me to be, needed me to be, expected me to be, paid for me to be. But I was out of touch. I was out of touch with my core self, what I now refer to as my core self. Now, fast forward that to today. I am incredibly comfortable in my own skin. I love who I have returned to be. getting in touch with that, knowing that, celebrating that, living in alignment with that, making decisions from that. So let me read it again. On being fulfilled, one cannot experience personal fulfillment without knowing and living their life in alignment with who they were created to be. In fact, true, deep, personal, and lasting fulfillment can only be experienced by knowing and living in alignment with who I was created to be. Turn it into an I statement if you like. It's even more powerful. So today, when we look at assessment or process number 5 and process number 6, which is really the 2 self-assessments, this is what we're after, is to what degree have I accomplished living in alignment with my created self, or not, or to what degree? And it's a great calibration of being able to do that. I've experimented with this thing probably for the last 15 years in earnest. I've picked out different times in my life that I've gone back and said, okay, so at this juncture in my life when I was a blank, okay, or I was at what particular age, well, how would I have answered these questions? And it's quite revealing, actually, and quantitatively, it's like, I guess so. The good and the bad of it. Okay. So let's go to, let's get into the first one. Process number 5 talks about 10 levels of assessment, 10 levels. So this is, I think there's 10 different places where I have been influenced, supported, taught, expected. The question is, to what degree have I done my inner work, and to what degree is my outer circumstances, programming, conditioning still with me? The analogy I like to use here is what's your internal, what I call the core self operating system, CoreSELF operating system. Is that functioning at 80%? Or is it more likely, my experience in working with thousands of coaching students and coaching clients, and my own personal life experience, is that most people are probably operating at 10, 15, 20%. If they've done any kind of self-awareness work, meditation, yoga, they may be up at 30, 35%. But it's still an old operating system that I have because I have not decommissioned, gotten rid of, replaced the external conditioning with my internal knowingness. So I make a distinction here in this particular one of 10 levels of assessment. And external, yeah, parents. I still have things going through my head that I can hear my mom, right? Or teachers, or society, or culture, or country, or the ethnicity, or sexual identity, or TV, or music, or advertisement, or social media, all the things that bombard me daily and have for a lifetime. How much of that am I still operating from, or trying to measure up to, or trying to get along, versus an internal, which is my deepest core of my unique being, that which my creator put there from, who knows, before birth even. And it's still there today, as alive and ready to be accessed as it was when I was born. So there's that internal, external tug of war that is striving to get my attention and have me think from a logical standpoint through the filters of my culture, my parenting, my education, and so on. And again, I've said many times, if you've listened to any of the previous sessions that I've done, is not all of that is bad. It's not like I'm trying to flush 100% of all of that out of me. A whole bunch of that is still incredibly useful, and was life affirming, if you will, as opposed to damaging. Okay. The question is, have I examined it and kind of sift through what's still good? What do I want to hold on to, and what do I not want to hold on to? So external, internal. All right, let's keep going here. So we've talked about programming, conditioning, socializing, normalizing, grooming, preparing for, so on and so forth, all external, as opposed to the internal, who my creator made me to be. My could be referred to as my spiritual self. Could be, a lot of people refer to this as the soul of the human being, right? The human spirit of a human being. What I now refer to and have been cataloging in these talks is core self. Core self, deep down, original core self, my core values, my life purpose, my natural gifts and talents, those that were there, endowed to me, again, at birth, maybe before birth, and are still there deeply inside of me and wanting desperately to be utilized, developed, recognized, celebrated, aligned with. Another cut at the external, internal is external is always changing. It's conditional. It depends on if it's in what role I'm in. As an executive, then I was supposed to be this way. As a sibling, I am supposed to be like this, etc. Temporal, meaning temporary. It's mostly, if it's coming from the external world wants me to be a certain way. No, don't do that in public. Don't do that in, you can't say that outside the hallways of this building, etc. And it may benefit me. And a may is a big may, because in most of my experiences, as I think back on it was mostly for the external job, person, role, that I was expected to be a certain way or do certain things. When I can gravitate and look at the internal and align with that, the internal the core self doesn't change. I'm convinced it does not change. It can be developed, yes. It can be more cognitive of alignment, yes, but it doesn't change. It's steady, it's permanent, and it benefits frankly, my reason for being alive, my reason for being on a planet. It's the ultimate answer to, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing here? How does my life make a difference? How do I contribute to my world? All of that comes from an internal place of, wow. You talk about becoming alive. Now we're talking. All right. Let me just check in with my questions over here, if there are any. Charles, I love you, Charles. I'm just backtracking here to the quote originally that I put on there. Wow, that's powerful. May I assume that we may include that in your being fulfilled quote in your publications and programs, and fulfilling your life purpose and ultimate destiny with full credit, of course. Absolutely, categorically. Please publish it everywhere. And I know that's exactly the work that Charles is involved in. And I've known Charles, I think, probably 20 years now, maybe more. Love you, man. Thank you for that. Yes, please chisel it on everything that you do. All right, so let's moving forward on the review. And if there's any other questions about this particular process, we're going to I'll bring it up the Excel spreadsheet again, and we can kind of do a little testing of that again, for those of you that have been working with it over the last several weeks. We originally went through this in episode number 6. That's why I'm borrowing these same slides. So series 5, episode 6, we go through and spend a lot of time on the actual Excel spreadsheet and explain how to fill it out, what it means. And, but this is kind of, again, the background of it. External is attitudes, beliefs, convictions, habits, judgments. A human being that comes into the world does not have any of those. They're moldable, if you will. They're an open book. And so attitudes, beliefs, convictions, habits, judgments come mostly from parents, from society, from culture that an individual is born into. It's kind of like the water that I swim in, right? So if it's a loving, caring, loving environment, and that was my, I'm very supportive over the first, particularly the first 10 years of my life, but maybe the first 20, then I pick up attitudes that are gracious, generous. And I learn those things. They're learned from my parents, from my teachers, from my culture, and so on. The sad thing is that if you're not living in that soup, that water of those kinds of external things, then the attitudes can be not life affirming, but life limiting. We pick up beliefs about who's good, who's bad. We pick up convictions of here's how life is supposed to be lived, and the people that don't live it this way are bad. They're bad people, and so on, right? All programming, all from the external. As opposed to when I am congruent with and forget about all of that as best I can as a human being, or reprogram myself, recondition myself, and look at my core values, life purpose, natural gifts, and talents. And when I operate from that place, I can't go wrong. I just can't, because it is innately life affirming. It is innately positive. It is innately supportive of myself and those that are around me. Has to be that way. I don't believe the creator, however you hold that, creates people to be bad. I think that they are the repository of all the negativity of the world that goes to them, because it's the lowest ebb of humanity, and they don't know how to deal with it any other way than to act out. That's just my own personal belief. You don't have to believe that to have all of this work for you. But I believe that every human being is still innately magnificent at their core. I just do, regardless of what they've done, regardless of what abuses they have imposed on somebody else in their life, their world. Again, that's just my attitude, my belief. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work. So the 10 levels looks a lot like this. Let me see if I can pull up, if I've got this programmed right, it will just automatically go boop. Aha. I love it when a plan comes together. Let me just move this out of the way so I can actually see this. So this is an Excel spreadsheet. Again, you can download this for free. It is on CoreSELFie.com, which is like right here. You've got the www.CoreSELFie.com. CoreSELFie, like a snapshot from the inside out. Download it for free, fill it out. It's got instructions on the top of this. And basically the first 7 components of this is basically from earlier in life. So early childhood adaptations, basically from when I was 0 to 7 years old. My parents told me who I was, what I had to do. They actually told me, Peter, we know better. Like, who am I to say at 6 years old that they don't, right? So that's the first level. How much of that is still operating within you? Early schooling from, say, the ages of 7 to 14, very formative years in terms of education for most people on the planet. When they go into grammar school, middle school, high school, and so on. Again, so we're now exposed to a larger piece of society, our peers that are of similar age, the teachers and educators and things that we go through then, all the peer pressures that we start hearing and seeing. Okay, so he's a cool kid or he's not a cool kid. He's a sports, he's good at sports. He's not good at sports. She's got great hair. I mean, all the stuff that goes into that is just overwhelming. And especially for a young person that just is there and doesn't know better, because they don't cognitively know who they really are. They are told who they are, and they're told who they're supposed to be accepted, to be in the group that they want to be involved in, included in, not feel left out, not being laughed at, not being ridiculed, not being bullied, all of that stuff. And I've worked with people that are in their 60s and 70s and 80s a lot, as well as people that are, in their late teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. But my point is that I don't care if there's a person that's 65 years old, they still are walking around with some of those scars. They are. I had one man cry. He was 70, I think he was 70 years old or ish, plus or minus a couple of years. And he started crying when he started talking about, I've never been able to sing happy birthday to my grandchildren. Not once. And he loved his grandchildren. He could not do that because of a scar that third grade teacher or peer said to him when he was trying to sing happy birthday or some other tune. I don't remember the exact scenario, but they ridiculed him for his voice, his singing, when he was, 10 years old. And it left a scar, and it was still there. As raw, maybe more raw than it was when it was at 10 years old. And so as we go through these 7 layers of programming, conditioning from the outside world, okay, higher levels of education, cultural adaptation, and that goes on for a lifetime. More cultural adaptation from the outside world, the social media, the television, the music, the times that we go through as a society as you're growing up. That leaves an imprint, right? External assessments that are taken or that you're given over the course of a lifetime, or more scientifically based ones in terms of, in corporate, it's very common that by the time that you're 40 years old, you've gone through probably 15 different assessments or tracking systems, DISC, MBTI, Myers-Briggs, 360s, and a whole bunch of other ones that are out there now that have been studied. And you are put into a bracket in terms of how you process information, how you communicate, how do you interact? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Do you process information audibly, visually, kinesthetically, and so on? All of those kinds of assessments are assessments to help manage, help communicate. They're not all bad, again. But you're being fit into a box of 12 types of people, right? Or 12 types of categories that they're testing. And if I try to live by that, then again, I'm going to the external as opposed to the internal. So those are the first 7 things. And basically you put these percentages in here. And I just have a automatic calculator here that, okay, so 5%, then accumulation is 5% so far, another 5. And that turns into a total of 10% of my makeup, my programming, my whatever is still tied to that little piece. And this is your best guesstimate, by the way. And you can play with this. if you run out of, if you're already at 100% by the time you're down to the fifth one, then you go, oh, wait a minute. No, maybe okay, so I'll make this one a little bit less and I'll make this a little bit more. So you just have to add it up so that it adds up to 100%. That's all. That's the only job that you got. Let me scroll down on this. Okay, so the first 7 here, and there's two columns if you notice. Over here, these columns is what I like to believe. In other words, give yourself a way big benefit of the doubt. These 2 columns over here, let me see if I can move this over just a little bit for my purposes. Well, I think that's still on the screen there, but here it's more likely these over here. Okay. So there's 2 different scales. On one side, it's like, yeah, in my wildest dreams, I would love to believe that I am, devoid of most of that old programming, but the truth is probably not. This kind of concept here. And again, play with this. You also see on the top of this here, let me just scroll up a little bit. Okay, so my current age, currently 72, at least for 2 more days I am. Current age 72. I'm doing this. I did this back on 14 September. So this is when I was doing the first version of this one. I think it was episode number 5. And I included this into, these are my scores at that point in time. Okay. Entered the age that I started doing some serious self-reflection, inner work. I call it deep inner work. I began my serious inner self-exploration and conscious change. So we're looking at this at what age? And if you haven't done that, if you're 37 years old and you haven't done any inner work and you've just been in an external human doing, like I was when I was 37, they just put your current age, 37. Okay. If you're 45 and you've been doing it for 10 years, then put, 35 because you started at 35, whatever that is. Now, the bottom 3 here is that core self concept of how much do I know who I really am? Okay, so the emphasis here is knowing. You'll see knowing highlighted here all over the place in this document. Oops. So in here, there's a description of knowing myself deeply, not from my external assessments, but from my internal explorations in meditation, yoga, self-discovery, deep down dive, wrestling with the midnight of the soul kind of thing. The second one is aligning with and actually living that. So to know it is great start. It's a spectacular start because you can't really align with your core self until you actually know what your core self is. So know yourself first is step 1. Step 2 is now that I know who my core is, and again, that gets revealed back in process number 1 in episode number 2. That's why I keep coming back to that. Please go back and do it. If you don't listen to anything else that I do for the rest of your life, go back to session or series 5, episode 2. It'll change your life. So once I know it, then I start having the opportunity and the choice to start aligning with that. My goals, my aspirations, my dreams, even the struggles that I might be still in. Where am I denying myself being myself? Whew, there's a powerful question. And how can I come back to aligning with that core sense of core self more strongly, more consciously, more deliberately? Because as a human being, just because I know it and I know who I am, I've known who I am pretty much like for the last 25 years, doesn't mean that I don't go off on a tangent sometimes, because I'm still human and I forget. or I get angry, or I get upset, or someone is irked me somehow. So, okay, all right, steady on. And come back to, who do I want to be as I show up in this situation? What talents and gifts can I bring to bear? How does it support my life purpose? That's all about the aligning piece here. And so I said 20% of my operating system is made up from knowing. 55%, and I believe this is pretty accurate for me now. It certainly wasn't at 37, but 55% of the time I am aligned with my core. And 10% is finally the celebration piece, kind of catching myself, being myself. So you have to be super conscious of actually having followed through on being that in that scenario, that conversation, that committee meeting, that group of people that I'm in, that training that I do. Congratulations. And this is not being it's not being braggy. It's being true to myself. Did I bring my best? What was I being my best? Was I being my core self in that scenario? Yeah, I think I was. Well, congratulations. Well done, Peter. Keep up the good work. By celebrating it, it reinforces it. I am more likely to remember that the next time when I go into a similarly contentious conversation, situation, tough decision making, when I can celebrate that and remember it. So 10%, that brings me up to the 100% over here at the bottom. Yeah. So adjust the percentages to add up to 100%. Obviously, if it adds up to 200%, then that kind of skews it. Or if it adds up to 85%, that kind of skews it. So just kind of go back and recalibrate those 10 items, those 10 levels, to get it to 100%. Now what we do is, how much, by adding the first 7 things up, it came out to like 15%, right? If I go back up here, and you'll see it right here. So if I add up these elements here, the accumulation or the cumulative adds up to a total of 15%. That's the 15% that's represented here in this square of the Excel spreadsheet. If I take the last 3, 20, 55, and 10, that would add up to 20%, and then 75%, 85%, totaling a total of 100%, because that's all 10 of them. But that 85% then is represented here in this internally sourced. Again, my CSOS. My CSOS is my core self operating system. And these are calculated already. You don't have to do anything with these. These are already, automatically programmed into it. Now, I am utilizing an estimated percent of my full potential core self operating system, 84%. And I think for me, that's pretty accurate today. Certainly wasn't when I was 37 or 47 or even 57. But now, yeah. Is there more to go? Obviously. Am I always there? Not every single situation with every single person every single day, but by and large, over the course of the last year, yep, that's how I'm operating right now. And it feels damn good, by the way, really good. If I go to the other side of the chart, and most of my programming is still up here in the top 7. And that adds up to 90%. And only 10% is coming from that internal core part, right? 5% here, 5% here, and 0% down here. Okay. So 90% is still being dictated by old programming. Good, bad, or ugly, you know, it's still 90% from old. And at 37, this would have been my scores, by the way, at 37. Yep. 20% of it would have been from parenting, teachers, education, society, mass media, who I'm supposed to be, etc. All of those things, 90% at 37. That's where I was operating from. Now, I was really good in some places like corporate, which I was a workaholic, and that got rewarded really well. It still does. But that's what was driving me. The problem was I was shallow and hollow inside. I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a personal life, quite literally. 10% kind of accidentally, maybe. I think because spirit, I think, just kind of keeps hanging on. it ekes through a little bit, even when I'm oblivious to it. So 90% was from the first 7 external, 10% maybe from the internal part, and I would have been operating at 39% of my core self. I've come a long way, baby. Yeah. So that is, again, a deeper explanation of the different levels that go into this, what we call process number 5, right? Here we see it up here. Process number 5, the 10 levels of influence on shaping my CSOS, core self operating system. It's an ingenious measurement. It really is. Highly encourage that you do this, and do it often, by the way, and experiment with it. One of the experiments that I did was, okay, so when I was 15 years old, where was I? When I was 35 years old, where was I? When I was at 55, where was I? And so on. And you can see a progression if you've been doing a lot of that inner work. And it'll pay off. You'll be a happier human being, and you'll have more to contribute. All right, so let me get rid of this one. I'm going to blank that one out. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to try to pick up the next one. Okay, so this is the process number 6. Right up here. Core self-mastery growth in untapped potential assessment. Mastery of growth and untapped potential assessment. One of the main things that we do in this last one is we give weighted averages to the X and Y axes. So to know, I'm going down to this column here now, right? And let me make sure that this is coming out. Yeah, super. So this column here is to know, to live it, to acknowledge it, or celebrate it. To know it is 30% of the job. To actually align with it, to follow through on that alignment, is 50%. And acknowledging it is 20%, that reinforcement piece that we just talked about. So there's a 30, 50, 20%, adding up to 100%, obviously, that goes through a weighting average of the score that you give yourself. The same is true for core values, life purpose, and natural gifts and talents. And that's truncated now just because I've squeezed it down on the screen here, but you get the idea. In this place right here, core values, 30%. So it's my most authentic way of being. My life purpose is, have I aligned with, or not aligned, but has the things that I am being, is it in service to my life purpose? Is a better way of saying it. Is it in service to my life purpose, or is it in service to somebody else's purpose? And that's the huge shift when we're talking about life purpose, core values, and natural gifts and talents. Everybody has values. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has some strengths and skills. The question is, are they yours? Are they coming from the inside of you, the ones that you were endowed with, or are they the ones that people have said, no, you have to learn how to be good at finance, or good at marketing, or good at sewing, or good at cooking, or good at child rearing, or good at whatever it is that other people wanted you to be? Are those part of your natural gifts and talents or not? When I can utilize my gifts and talents and I can use my natural way of being, how do I show up authentically? And are they in service to what I'm here to contribute, my life purpose? That's when the magic happens. If I am being my authentic self, but I'm being it for somebody else's purpose, Peter, we're not going to pay you unless you produce this, right? This amount of sales, or this amount of, things that need to be manufactured this month, or so on. All right. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But looking at it from my core, my life purpose, I can live my life purpose regardless of the role that I'm in. Let me repeat that. I can live my life purpose regardless of the role that I'm in, or the stage of life that I'm in. It is not just I have to be the quarterback for an NFL football team between the ages of 20 and 30 when I retire, and that's the only time I get to do my life purpose. That is not, I don't believe that. Can those individuals that are in that position live their life purpose through that medium, through that role? I believe that absolutely. But they'll also be able to do it as a dad. They'll also be able to do it as a retired NFL player. They'll also be able to do it as a spouse. They'll also be able to do it as a inspirational leader or author, or whatever they choose to go into next. So that's why we weight that 50%, gifts and talents 20%. So if you know your strengths, and like you go through Strengths Finder, and that's not a bad way to start, by the way. But that's 20% of who you are deep down. It gives you kind of a shadow look at what we go through here. To go through this, there's 4 quadrants here. Step 1 is listed up on top here. You see it right here. Complete this yellow section first. That will show you, and the way you read this is on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, so I'm looking at this block right here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do I know my core values? Not the ones that I've been taught, but my own core values from 1 to 10. How well do I know, and I've articulated, written them down on a piece of paper, my life purpose? Not many people have. I've been doing this work for 25 years. No one, I can say this. I have people that come and will have a life purpose statement and have some values there, and they'll understand some of their strengths or gifts, but they're not their core strengths. They're not their core values. They're their learned values mostly. Life purpose is generally directed towards one part of their life, and not a universal, ubiquitous, applicable life purpose. But if I give the generous, the generous doubt or credit, maybe 1% of the population of the world actually has this written down on a piece of paper and knows it deep down that, yeah, everyone else is operating from a system that has been from the external world. How well do I know from 1 to 10 my natural gifts and talents, or at least the beginning list of that? And know how well am I living my core values, actually employing those in everything that I do? Or how am I being with those? How am I bringing those to my life purpose or not? 1 to 10. How well am I aligning and bringing in my natural gifts and talents into everything that I do in my life? So that's how this works. I know this works the same way in all 4 quadrants that we've got here. If once I've calculated that, let me get this back over here like so. Whoops. Just 1 second. I've got some screen things that are going on here for me. All right, there we go. Step 2 is up here. You can see this on the chart right now. Prior to going through the work that I'm putting through here, this CoreSELF processes 1 through 5, where was I then? In other words, what kind of growth have I had? The first block is over here in terms of where am I now after having gone through the amazing edification of Peter Redding's CoreSELF technology. Thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate that. And go back and look backwards to where was I? I thought I knew, but I really didn't know, is what I hear a lot from my clients and my students, where they are applying this and using this in their coaching with individuals that think that they are pretty conscious about their life. But after they go through this, they go, wow. Yeah, it explains why I wasn't so happy, or I was miserable, or I was whatever. So this is the 9 segments in the middle here is what you change. You can't change anything else on this. It's all self-calculating after that with the weighted averages that I just talked about. So let me just I'll put a number in here just to show you that I can change it right now. So I'll put a 3 in there, and immediately it changes with a weighted average of 16% over here, right? If I put a 2 in here, and I'll put a 3 in here, and I'll put a 4 in here, and just for the sake of putting some numbers in here, these tend to be pretty low, probably 5 or less. Okay, I'll leave those at 1s. So all of that then is calculated over here. Let me go back to where I am now with each of these things, and I'll do this real time for myself right now. So to what degree do I know my core values? I actually know them at a 10. My life purpose, I'm going to say a 9. My natural gifts and talents, I'm going to say that's at a 9. How well do I align with those things? My core values, most of the time, I'm going to say a 9. My life purpose, that's going to be a 10. And am I actually aligning with my natural gifts and talents? That's going to be a 10 as well. Now, do I acknowledge myself for my core values? I'm going to say that's probably I'll give it a 7. Probably a 7 recently. Life purpose, I give myself credit for that most of the time. And natural gifts and talents, that's probably down around I'll give that an 8 as well. All right. Okay. So after that's all calculated out, my current mastery is at about an 89%. Now it's interesting. The last chart that I had was at 84, 85%, I think. And before I did all of this work actually went up to 92. Okay, I hadn't calculated the last piece of it. Before I did all of this work, it would probably been at a 25%, which is probably pretty accurate. Now, the bottom 2 charts, again, automatically calculate. You can't put numbers in any of these things. These are all pre-programmed for you. And so what it says is that I've grown 340% from the earlier time before CoreSELF. And this last chart is my remaining potential, okay, my untapped potential. And it's reciprocal of this number here up on top. So this number on top, that 92%, that's what I'm currently living at according to my own numbering system. Remaining, obviously from 100% is 8%. It's just a subtracting from that first chart. This can vary, this can change. I encourage anyone that's starting to do this kind of work to do this on a monthly basis. Actually go through and rate these things for yourself. So where am I today? At the end of October 2021, if you will. Step one. And step two, you can go back to say, okay, so where was I a month ago? Or where was I 6 months ago? At January of 2021. And put this in and kind of keep track of, because it's great feedback of, oh, I could use some more work here and acknowledging. And this is not hubris. This is not, aren't I fantastic? This is actually an incredibly humbling exercise to go through and keep going through. It's a work in progress. My life is a work in progress. Yeah. Let me come back to questions and chat box here and see what questions or comments are coming through. Is there an easy way to save monthly and annually results of this exercise? I don't have that. Who's that coming in? From Charles again, I think, or from Charles? Yeah, thank you. Other than just graphing it out on, piece of paper or chalkboard or whiteboard that you've got in your office, January, February, March, April, May, where am I with this? Or just do a printout copy. I haven't put together a timeline, at least for this. I've done it for other activities where I've put it into like a graphic, and in Excel, if you're really, really good at Excel, you can actually do that. Add a graphics outline, and then grab information from the previous sheets. So maybe somebody in the universe will do that for us and donate that to the cause. But again, it's a great thing to track on your journaling, or your own charting system. Yeah. Any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes here remaining. No? Okay. Then I will go to my PowerPoint. It's great to quantify this. Very powerful, Corey says. Yeah, thank you, Corey. Yeah, I just love it. I just love it. It's so powerful. It's so brilliant. It's so easy. You've got all the tools that you could use here. Okay. All right. So let me wrap up then. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining in. You're all welcome. Again, this is all free. This is my way of giving back to the universe that I am been totally, unbelievably blessed by in every way that you can imagine. Financially, health-wise, knowing my work. This will end series number 5 in terms of CoreSELF tools and processes and technology. The next stage is, okay, let me catch up here. Yeah, and again, please let everybody in your universe know about this. They can download this for free. If you have it and you give it away for free, please. Don't change anything. And it has this thing on the bottom of, I think, each of the processes that we have in the CoreSELFtech.com website, that anybody can use this and give it as long as it's for free and as long as you don't change it. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Next series is series number 6. Episode 1 will not be next week. I'm panel host for the International Coaching Federation's annual virtual Converge 2021, and I'll be a moderator for a panel of coach educators and trainers at the exact same time. They didn't consult me ahead of time, so it's at the exact same time as I normally do this. So we'll skip next week. But the week after that, we'll go into 21 weeks, 21 sessions of positively brilliant self-mastery. Positively brilliant self-mastery. It's actually a book that I wrote. Let's see if I can see that. There it is right there. Positively Brilliant Self-Mastery. I wrote this back in 2008, I think. It was published in January 2009. I've never done this, but I'm going to, and I asked 21 different people to write a story about the different elements of this. The first part of this is your divine nature, your infinite divine nature. And I have 3 principles that come under that category. The first one is we are connected to an infinite and life-affirming divine source, however you may hold that. This is not a religious thing, but it's a very spiritual thing. And I don't know if you can get a hard copy anymore, but you can. I think you can download it at Amazon Kindle. I think it's maybe $10. I don't know exactly, but you should be able to do that. And we're going to go through each of those principles, to all 21 of them, over the course of the next 21 weeks, starting 2 weeks from today. I would love to have you be part of that, get involved with that, ask questions, participate, read it as we go. Each chapter is maybe 3 or 4 pages. It's not a heavy duty read, but it is a great way of anyone that's doing journaling. It's a great stimulator for that. Where am I with this particular element? Where am I with this particular attitude? Where am I with this particular belief? Where am I with this particular principle of knowing myself and applying that to my current life? So there's like questions at the end, very coach-like in that regard, as you might expect. I'd love to have you part of that journey, and that will take us through the end of next March. We will not miss a week. It turns out that it's kind of Tuesday doesn't interfere with Christmas Day or New Year's Eve or that type of thing. So we'll be going right through every week, 21 weeks, starting 2 weeks from today. Would love to have you come. With that, I will sign off for now. God bless. Namaste.